What a day one in the 2024 New York Giants free agency window. I'm Josh. I'm joined by my friend and co-host Alex. We're coming to you bright and early here on Tuesday morning of day two. We had to make sure all the moves were solidified, and overnight nothing changed. But we're coming to you, and we're going to talk about it all. I'm just going to send it to Alex real quick to check in on him, and then we'll get things going. Alex, how are you doing after a busy day one?
I mean, I've been better, Josh, physically. I'm a little bit sick. Hopefully my voice doesn't sound bad, but I mean, I've been doing better from that standpoint. But in terms of free agency yesterday, it was really exciting. I was on the train yesterday going back to school and just scrolling through Twitter, just seeing all the moves happening. My train was literally like at 12:30 or whatever, so everything was happening while I was sitting on the train, and including the big Saquon Barkley news at that time. And let's just say I might have had a little bit of an overreaction on the train where everyone else was being quiet, and I might have gone, "God damn it!" and like screamed a little bit too loudly, and that may not have been too acceptable on the Amtrak. So I don't know. It is what it is, but that doesn't happen every day that your best player goes to your biggest rival and screws you over. So I guess I had a fair point there. But yeah, I'm doing well. Considering the sickness, and I'm just happy that free agency is here, and that things are happening in the NFL, and the league year is about to start in a couple days.
That it is, Alex. And yeah, I mean, you could watch my main reactions about 5 to 10 minutes after the news happened right there on TikTok. I haven't checked this morning, but as of last night, it's been doing pretty well. And I guess people love to see a Giants
People
fan in
love
there.
people in pain. People love to see people in pain. It's crazy.
Welcome to Earth, Alex, is really where we are right now. And
Yeah.
anyway, so we'll talk about pain for a little bit, but eventually we will get to some happiness. And so the running back Saquon Barkley signed with the Philadelphia Eagles, obviously 3 years, $37.75 million. It's worth up to $46.75 million, includes $26 million fully guaranteed. He now beats the franchise tag number, has a maximum average per year salary of almost $16 million, which would be the second highest for a running back in NFL history. So again, congrats to Saquon. He beats that franchise tag mark. And again, I wish nothing more than success for Saquon until he decides to go to our arch rival. That's the thing. He could have signed with any team, any place, right? 20-something other teams to choose from. He decides, let me go to the arch rivals in the Eagles. So now I cannot root for Saquon. I have to root against him. And I don't wish him the best, actually, because if I wish him the best, that means he's going to be dominating in the NFC East, and I can't have the Eagles having success. So it's really unfortunate. It sucks now because now I have to root against him and not for him wherever he went in the NFL. But that's really it besides that, because we knew the Giants weren't going to franchise tag him. We knew the Giants weren't going to sign him. It was just a matter of where Saquon Barkley was going to end up, and he happens to go to the Eagles. And we move from a player I have the jersey of to another player that I have the jersey of in safety, Xavier McKinney, who signs a 4-year deal worth up to $68 million with the Green Bay Packers. My favorite New York Giants player, I guess now former New York Giants player, $17 million per year average. Also have his jersey. I think I said that already, but great stuff. This is why we love to get jerseys here. Basically gets the franchise tag money with the 4 years of that, and then top 5 money per year for a safety. At least this is someone I could still root for because he goes to the Packers. That's huge money. Alex, I know, was going to talk about that more, but that was just out of the question for the New York Giants to sign. They were not going to sign Xavier McKinney for $17 million a year, and especially 4 years worth of that money.
Yeah, I'd say from a pure logical standpoint, taking all emotion out of it, the Saquon Barkley deal is ridiculously high. It is something that the Giants would never have been able to match, never should have matched. Getting up to 15 a year on that deal. Let's say, right, the base is 12 and a half. It could go up to 15 and a half. Let's say it gets to 14, right? Let's say he kind of half hits the incentives, right? That I think is expected on this Eagles offense. He half hits the incentives. $14 million a year in today's day and age for a running back. for someone who's 27 years old, right? We saw a similar comp. Josh Jacobs went for 12 a year, right, when he went to the Packers. Speaking of very strange move, but we're not a Packers or a Raiders podcast, but very, very strange move to go to the Packers and then cutting Aaron Jones. But, I guess teams do what they have to do. But 12 million, Josh Jacobs was younger. He's still more explosive at this time. Yes, I know Saquon Barkley is a bigger talent, but I mean, both of those were overpays in my mind, but that's still rich when you're looking at the rest of the market. DeAndre Swift going for 8. Who else? There was another player that went for 8. Tony Pollard going for 8 million. So I overall think the Giants could not have matched that deal for Saquon Barkley, and it just was not the right team building move to do so. Of course, there's rumors out there. I know Ryan Dunleavy put it out that the Giants didn't even give him an offer. So I guess that could anger some Giants fans. But to be honest, we talked about this in an interview with Bobby from Talking Giants. It just felt like it was time to move on, and this era of Saquon Barkley at the Giants just needed to be over. And now it is. It just felt like now Saquon Barkley kind of took it out on the Giants by choosing the Eagles and kind of clowning everyone on Twitter with the, Eagles emojis, then, beefing with Tiki Barber. And then, of course, now the edit. I don't know. Did you see the edit that he posted where he was in a Giants uniform and it switched right to an Eagles uniform? So that's not normal free agency, moving to a different team behavior. Let's just say you don't do that kind of stuff generally. It's more thank you to the old team. I'm excited to get started with the new team. That's kind of it. Saquon Barkley went a little bit above and beyond that, and you could tell it was somewhat personal for him. But yeah, not happy with Saquon Barkley. We'll be booing him whenever we play. Yeah, I think I tweeted out it was a great betrayal. He's a traitor. Maybe it's not that serious, but in my heart, that's how serious it feels. And I'm not happy with him. Let's just say that it is not cool to go to the Eagles. And yeah, just really, really upset. And I know Josh is really upset too. I mean, if you saw his reaction video to it. So that's all I'll say on Saquon. Do you have anything else to say on Saquon before I touch on McKinney?
Yeah, I guess just it's a matter of time now, whereas the old heads in quotes will say it, guys don't care about rivalries anymore. Players don't care about rivalries anymore. It's not there's no, players don't care about rivalries, players don't care about rivals. I'll stop saying that word now, but I said it like 5 times there. Yeah. But
I'd also say he said, I want to be a Giant for life. I love the Giants. This is my team. All this stuff, all this BS just to leave. I get the Giants were not doing him fairly, but still to say all that and then go to the Eagles. If he went to the Packers, for example, I would not have been mad at all. I would have been like, yeah, that's fair. Like he deserved. But the fact that he, says all that stuff and then goes to the main rival of the Giants, not cool, Saquon, not cool at all. But I mean, I guess I'm happy that he got his bag, but still not really at all. And just really, really not a good move for him. And, he is definitely, I saw people saying this, definitely not a Ring of Honor member now, definitely not going to be in the Giants history books at this point in terms of a elite player. Like we look back on some of these guys, never won a Super Bowl, never had one winning season, and then went to the Eagles. So definitely not someone who's going to be fondly remembered by Giants fans. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I would say, yeah. So going along with what I was talking about, they don't care about rivals and they go where the money is. And that's exactly what happened with Saquon Barkley. That's, those old heads are right in a sense that is what players do now. So wherever the money takes them, that's where they would follow. And I think I was listening. I don't know where I was listening. I wish I could give credit to this person, but what they said was, if you were in a position of this high stature, right? Obviously to you sitting here right now, listening to us or watching us, we really appreciate it, by the way. If you have the opportunity, and maybe you are, have the opportunity of getting paid millions of dollars like these guys do, congrats to you. Then you, I think, also would pick the most expensive option that you could get money-wise. Saquon Barkley really, in a way, did nothing wrong with what he had. If the Giants did not offer him a contract and the Eagles offered him the most amount of money out of all the teams, obviously he's going to sign with the Eagles. They're giving him the most amount of money. So for people to come at Saquon Barkley and be like, hey, you suck, you chose whatever. Yeah, obviously we're going to be salty. It's the Philadelphia Eagles. But if they gave him the most money, it makes sense. And then if you really want to be mad at someone, be mad at Joe Schoen then. You know what? Alex and I, we were fine with Joe Schoen and the New York Giants letting go of Saquon Barkley. I mean, it's unfortunate. He's our star player. He was the face of the franchise for a few years, the captain. We know that. But at a matter of time, he had to go. He had to go. The Giants and Saquon Barkley did not have the same mindset when it came to money. And because of that, Barkley didn't probably feel comfortable with what he had. Now, sure, could you come to me and could you say, hey, well, the Giants should have traded him if that was the case? Why didn't they trade him during the season? Maybe Joe Schoen thought during the season they were going to get something done. Maybe that's why. Maybe they didn't want to lose the locker room. Sure, the Giants had a terrible season. That's why we have the 6th pick. But if trading Saquon was your answer, I mean, top 5 pick, top 3 pick, I mean, he is the one that holds this locker room together. He was a captain for this team. And I think, yeah, sure, maybe we could have gotten a second rounder out of him. And sure, maybe it sucks now, especially because he's going to the Eagles and especially because we didn't get any capital from trading Saquon. Who knows what teams would have been interested. But anyway, I'll leave it at this. If it was you in that position, you're choosing the team that's offering you the most amount of money. And if you're someone who's mad about Saquon for doing this, don't be mad at Saquon because the Giants didn't even offer him a contract from what the reports are saying. So if you're going to be mad at someone, be mad at the Giants front office. That's what I'll leave it at. I'm sure you're going to run and respond. We should probably move to McKinney, though, but go ahead.
I mean, I agree mostly. I agree that, like, I'm not mad that he chose the Eagles as much as the fact that he ended up rubbing it in on social media and kind of almost taunting Giants fans.
The day and age we're in, Alex. I mean,
I get it, but still, when you're moving from one team to another in such a divisive fashion, that would not have been the angle I would have taken. And to be honest, I was surprised he took that angle because he's been such a, kind of high class professional throughout his career, and the fact that he kind of stooped a little bit low was a little bit surprising to me. But that was it. It just wasn't something I expected Saquon Barkley to do. If a McKinney did it, I would not have been surprised one bit. To be honest, because that I just feel like fits his personality a little bit. He's kind of someone who likes to be a little bit divisive, on social media, whatever it may be, right? Saquon Barkley, someone who's very, I guess, by the book, more Eli Manning style in terms of how he deals with the media. So,
the most respectful man possible, Saquon Barkley does not deserve more than 10 minutes on this podcast because he's now a Philadelphia Eagle. There's nothing really else to say at this point.
I mean, I get it, Josh, but he's literally the most important player over our past 6 years. So I think it is fair to give him 10 minutes. But yeah,
no, it's not anymore. I mean, now he's with them. So I feel like we covered the bare bones of the situation. I mean, we could keep digging deeper, but there was so much that happened yesterday. I just don't think that.
Really I'll get to McKinney now.
Thank you.
I'll get to McKinney, but I think I was kind of willing to do 64 over 4, which is 16 million a year. He ended up getting 68 over 4, which was 17 million a year. That 64 is my cap for McKinney, just based off where the market is. I wonder, did the Giants offer that? Because if so, I feel like McKinney might have taken $1 million a year less to stay with the Giants. But so I was a little surprised that the Giants did not end up re-signing McKinney. I thought they were going to re-sign him. Obviously, they had other things in the works, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, I was a little bit surprised that he ended up leaving. But he got good money, obviously, more money than he probably deserves based on his career so far. I think the 14 or 15 million a year range was probably fair for him at his current value. But then again, you're also projecting, right? 24 years old, only is going to get better. So I do understand it from the Packers standpoint, but it is a deal that's a little bit more rich than I would have been willing to give McKinney. And for that reason, I'm not upset that he walked, and I'm not upset that Joe Schoen didn't, get him for that price tag, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I mean, I already talked about this, and I did Saquon and McKinney a few 10 minutes ago. But yeah, just top 5 money per year for a safety. Basically, it's a franchise tag for 4 years worth of that money. It was never going to happen. The Giants were never going to pay him that much.
He's just not a top 5 safety. Maybe he's top 8. That's like probably the most I could give him.
He's not a top 5 safety, but you know who's not? Are we good with McKinney? Because I was about to do.
I'm done with McKinney.
Yeah. All right, best transition here now. McKinney is
would have been better if you didn't check with me and just went right into it.
Well, because I had to check with you 5 times about Saquon, so here we are.
I love yapping. Continue.
McKinney might not be a top 5 safety, but you know who is not a top 5 edge rusher but got paid like it, and that's Brian Burns. The Giants trade for the star defensive end, the star edge rusher in Brian Burns from the Carolina Panthers. So there's a lot to do here. I'm going to start. I don't know how long Alex is going to go for. You might have to, strap your seatbelt on because we'll have to wait and see. Let's go here. So Brian Burns was on the end of his contract after 2024. So along with the trade, obviously it was only a 2024 second round pick and a 2025 fifth round pick to the Panthers in exchange for Burns. The teams also swapped their fifth round picks in this year's draft. It was the projected early second round pick, I believe pick 39 in this year's NFL draft that the New York Giants traded to the Panthers, and they still keep their later second round pick, which I believe is 47. Now, with that being said, that second round pick that the Giants had, they have 2 because one of them is from the trade that they got, the comp pick from the Leonard Williams trade earlier in the season. So it's basically sort of not irrelevant in quotes, but it's basically like you were trading Leonard Williams away because that pick is equivalent and a 5th rounder for Brian Burns. However, that's why the reason why it was so little, and it was only a 2nd round and a 5th round pick, was because the Giants were going to have to pay Brian Burns. And so they did. 5 years, worth up to $150 million, 87.5 of those $1 million guaranteed, which makes Burns the 2nd highest paid defensive end behind Nick Bosa. So Alex can break down all the money because I know he's going to want to do that in the contract, and we have all the stats here for that. What I will say right now is take a look, and you could do it yourself at home too. Go on Google, look up the highest defensive ends getting paid right now in the NFL. Go on StatTrack, do it yourself. I know I'm sure Alex has done it 10 times by now. I've done it 10 times by now. And look at when those guys signed the contract. Because as we know, the salary cap has gone up tremendously in the past few years. And especially this year went up. So you look back and you say, okay, so Nick in the NFL, he got $6 million more than Brian Burns is. He got paid last year. Who's in 3rd? Sure, Myles Garrett. Is Myles Garrett worth more than Brian Burns? Absolutely. When did he get paid? 2020, 4 years ago. You look at a guy like, who's another player in here that we could talk about? Montez Sweat got paid last year. But there's just players in this list, obviously, that are better than the edge rusher of Brian Burns. But you just have to look at when they got paid because it was before this point. And I'm sure those guys at their next contracts coming up the next few years will get paid more than Burns. Alex, I'll let you take the floor now and give your assessment here.
Yeah, in terms of trade compensation, I think that's pretty low for Brian Burns. I think in reality, he's probably worth a late first. The fact that you could get him for a early to mid or early second, I should say, alongside a 5th rounder, I think it's very good compensation. In terms of the deal, I do think it's a little bit rich, but I don't think it's as bad as some people are making it out to be. 5 years, $141 million in actuality. Really a 3-year, $90 million deal because you can get out after 3 years. The cap hits, let me just pull that. I literally just had it pulled up, but the cap hits 23.5 this year, 27 and a half in 2025, 28.75 the year after that, 30.5, and then 30.5. So not too bad, not as much as you'd think. $25 million
front-loaded contract though.
Yeah, $25 million signing bonus. in 2024. His base salary, 18 million in 2024, and then he has the 10.75 in 2025 fully guaranteed at signing. So hypothetically, if you wanted to cut him after that, you would take on $10 million in dead cap. So not terrible. 2026, I meant, sorry, not 2025, but not terrible if you look at it from a risk standpoint, because you can get out after 3 years. Of course, you're projecting here with Brian Burns. He's been on an awful, god awful team in the Carolina Panthers with pretty much no defensive line presence at all. So that, and he still managed to pretty much average 10 to 11 sacks a season. So overall, I like the projection here of what Brian Burns can be next to Dexter Lawrence, next to Kayvon Thibodeau in this new scheme on defense. And I think it's a good trade. I think overall it was a positive transaction, the trade and also the extension. And I think Brian Burns, you got to pay premium positions. Edge rusher is a premium position, and he just makes everyone around him better. He's going to make Dexter Lawrence better. He's going to make Kayvon Thibodeau better, and he's going to make Azeez Ojulari better. Don't forget about him. Now a guy who doesn't have to play every snap, someone whose hamstrings can get a little bit of a rest. Clearly, he needs it, and maybe can be more of a third down passing down specialist. And I think that could be really positive for him as well in his development. So overall, I think this is just really good for everyone. And I'm excited to see Brian Burns as a Giant. I think he's been a sneaky productive player for Carolina, and I think he's only going to get better on a better defense. So overall, I'd say if I had to give the trade a grade in terms of the compensation plus the new deal, I'd give it an A-. So I'm excited.
And you're getting Burns in his prime. That's really what you want here for the New York Giants. He's 25 right now. He's going to be
even
26.
Before his prime. He's got a couple years in the middle of his contract. He'll be in his prime, which is exactly what you want.
So he's going to start the season when he's 26, 30 years old by the end of the contract. A two-time Pro Bowler, Burns has racked up 46 sacks, 8 forced fumbles, 59 tackles for loss, 246 total tackles, 95 quarterback hits, over 67 starts and 80 appearances in his career. His best season came in 2022. He tallied career highs with 12.5 sacks, 17 total tackles for loss, and 63 total tackles, 22 QB hits. I know I threw a lot of stats at you there, but this is something that isn't a stat, but it's just more along with being productive on the field. Another thing that the Giants prioritized with their signings yesterday was durability and dependability. So the two D's there, durability, dependability. He didn't miss more than one game in any of his first 5 seasons and 16 games last season. 8 sacks, 16 tackles for loss, 50 total tackles, 18 QB hits. So he's obviously going to be alongside Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon. Alex already mentioned this stuff, but durability, that is something that really the Giants prioritized with these signings yesterday. And so I guess we can move to the next one here because, again, there's just so much that happened. But if I'm going to talk about Burns for one last second, yeah, I think that a great addition to the team. And I think he's going to do a lot for this defense. It's, going to be interesting. With last year was the first year, I believe he ran a 3-4 system. The year before that, or the prior years before that, he ran a 4-3. So obviously used to a couple different defensive schemes, but he's going to really add a lot, and especially in a conference and in a division specifically with a lot of good edge rushers. He's going to be helpful for the Giants to compete. And I'm really excited. And another guy I'm excited for is the offensive guard and John Runyon Jr., who signs with the New York Giants for 3 years, $30 million, including $17 million guaranteed. This Runyon deal came right after the Saquon news. So everyone's like, great, at least we got a guard. But it is true because he's going to immediately start, most likely at right guard, replacing Ben Bredeson is my guess, although he does have experience starting at both left guard or right guard. Wherever you place him, he's going to start. That's the anticipated goal and the guess. In 2023, 574 pass blocking snaps, 22 QB pressures allowed, only 2 sacks allowed. His pass rush win rate is 94%. That was 9th among guards. And dependability, durability, played at least 16 games in 3 straight seasons. So the Giants prioritize guys who are not injury prone, and when they are just basically don't get injured most of the time. Obviously, you can't predict, but you can look at the past, and that's what they've done when they sign these guys.
Yeah, basically, essentially another Mark Lewinsky deal in terms of the money. With the inflated cap, it's just about the same amount of guarantees, same amount of salary. So I'm not like super confident that he's going to be a great guard. I think he could be an okay guard. Um, Based on what I've seen, he looks a lot better at left guard than he is at right guard. So I'd hope the Giants play him at left guard. Obviously, new O-line coach. Hopefully, he can help him improve as well. But yeah, he seems like a very average offensive lineman, but that's still better than bad offensive linemen, which we've had, in the past few years. So hopefully he's not bad. Hopefully he can improve as well. Still on the younger side, I believe only 26 years old. So overall, not, super hyped for this deal, but not super upset either. I think it's just something that had to be done. And I know it's not as flashy as some of the upper echelon name guards that were on the market who were getting 20 odd mil a year, but for $10 million a year, I think Runyon could be a solid player for us. And, I don't think he's going to be a great run blocker. He could probably be a pretty solid pass blocker, pretty much the opposite of Glowinski. And actually, Glowinski was pretty bad at both, honestly, in his Giants era. But yeah, I don't really have much to say because I don't think he's going to be amazing based on what I've seen, but I don't think he's going to be awful either. I think he'll overall bring improvement to this offensive line.
And obviously the football genes is in his roots, with his father, John Runyon Sr., being the arch nemesis of former New York Giant Michael Strahan. So I don't know if you saw Michael Strahan's tweet last night out, but he's excited for the youngster to come in and play for the New York Giants. And it's a good point you brought up, because you're correct. Not only did the New York Giants sign players that were durable and dependable, they signed no player or traded for no player, including Brian Burns, under 30 years old. I believe the oldest guy they signed was over 30 years old. Thank you. All the players are under 30. I believe the oldest being this guy we're about to talk about, who's 29, and that is the offensive lineman Jermaine Illuminor, to a 2-year, $14 million deal. Another player that's hopefully going to be able to be used in the rotation at the tackle position. Most likely going to look to compete for the starting tackle spot on the right side with Evan Neal, because for Evan Neal, I hope he gets the right tackle starting spot. I hope he does well, because for Neal, this is a make or break year. And I think depending on what he does, it'll determine if next year the Giants are going to have to draft a right tackle high in this year's draft, because his rookie contract, it's coming down to the wire. So Neal so far has been a below average, if not very bad, starting offensive tackle. And if he doesn't make sense of himself this year, I don't know what his future is going to be with the New York Giants. I think they'll have to move on. But the Giants sign Illuminar here to maybe get his blood boiling a little bit. Like, listen, they don't believe in me. Let me show them. Let me do better. And then if he doesn't, at least we have Illuminar there that can come in and start just in case it really, really does not, fit. Goes to shambles, I would say. But just another guy to have as a backup and a competition throughout training camp and preseason for a starting spot on the Giants offensive line.
Yeah, I really like this signing. Probably my favorite signing of the day in terms of free agency signings, obviously. I think he's a really solid tackle. I think he's an average NFL tackle. And the fact that you could get him for $7 million a year with this inflated cap, very happy with that. And I think he's going to bring some positive competition, maybe even as a solid starter for the Giants. So that's all I'll say. It's always tough to project these offensive linemen, so I'm not going to yap too long about them. But I like Illuminor, and I think hopefully he can work well with Priscillo and maybe make something happen there on the right tackle spot if Evan Neal, like you said, disappoints. And then Devin Singletary, Josh, I'll transition right there for you. 3-year deal, up to $19.5 million, $16.5 million without bonuses. I thought it was a little bit rich because what is that? That's 5.5 base, could go up to 6.5. Right there we go. I'm doing the good math right there. So let's say $6 million a year. I believe it was 12 guaranteed or 11 guaranteed. So it's a little rich for Devin Singletary. We saw Zach Moss get a 2-year deal. I thought Zach Moss, Devin Singletary, similar type players. We saw Zach Moss get 2 years, $8 million. So significantly less than Devin Singletary. I think Singletary can do more out of the backfield in terms of the passing game, so maybe that's where that extra money comes in. But I thought it was a little bit more than he was going to get. Obviously, the market's a little bit inflated, but I'm not upset. I mean, it's $5.5–6 million a year. It's not that serious. But I'm happy that Singletary is here. I think he's a really good back. And I think if you supplement him with a running back in the draft, could potentially be a nice running back room to replace Saquon Barkley. But I did think that contract was a little bit rich considering what you're getting in Devin Singletary. But overall, I'm not upset. I like the player, just not the contract.
Yeah, Alex, I think that Devin Singletary, the Saquon Barkley replacement that we got about an hour or so after
Both
Saquon
were
Barkley signs
26.
both were at 26, and he signs about an hour or so after Saquon Barkley does with the Eagles in 2020. He's just a reliable player. I mean, I don't think the Giants will sign another running back here in free agency. I mean, never say never, but I don't think they will. And then when you come to the draft, maybe another late round pick that they've done in, every so often the past like 5 to 10 years, getting a running back in here. But it's going to be definitely Devin Singletary as the starter next year and the first string guy. He's again, another dependable player who doesn't get injured too often, doesn't miss many games, and just gets a little over 800 yards per year rushing. Since he's been in the NFL. So in 2023, 216 carries, 898 yards, 4 touchdowns. And he also is a receiving threat as well. 4 yards per catch, 30 catches, 193 yards. And then there's the connection. Was on the Bills from 2019 to 2022. So connections with obviously Brian Dable and Joe Shane. And that does it for your day one of New York Giants free agency.
Don't forget the re-signings, Josh. I know we don't want to talk about
free agency. These are re-signings.
I mean, technically still free agencies, but
it is.
Gunnar Olszewski's back, Casey Kreider's back, and Carter Coughlin's back. So for those who are super interested, all on 1-year deals, all on minimum deals, but
good catch.
Good that they are back, I guess. And I guess I would just finish this off before we kind of wrap it up here, Josh. Looking at where positions are kind of weak and need improvement on this team, obviously quarterback, Tyrod Taylor's gone. He's going to the Jets. They only have Tommy DeVito, Daniel Jones, so that's going to be a spot they need to improve still. Running back still needs to be improved. The tackle spots are pretty shored up now for this year. Guard, I think, is going to be an area where they're still going to need some more depth, maybe even another starter. Wide receiver, hopefully you're looking for an alpha guy, but if not, I think depth-wise, you got good stuff at wide receiver. You're just kind of missing that number one. Tight end, I think you're pretty good. And then moving to the defense, I think the defensive line, you're looking pretty good. You need some depth pieces, obviously. Linebacker, I think you're also looking pretty solid as well with McFadden still around. Darian Beavers hopefully coming to make an impact. And then I think really the secondary is where you're going to need to improve on defense. Corner, we need another starting corner. We're going to need another starting safety. So I would expect DB to be an area that the Giants look at, especially more in free agency. And then I think the other areas I mentioned will be more draft targets.
Xavier McKinney, a half hour ago when we're recording this, posted on Twitter, Giants Nation, thank you for an incredible 4 years. Always got a place in my heart for sure. Alex, I thought you were going to go there and be like, last thing we need to touch on, let's talk about more of Saquon Barkley.
No, I was just doing a nice synopsis of what the Giants team looks like right now, and I thought so. I would say, yeah, go for it.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think DB is going to be a spot you'll see more in free agency, not big splashes, but small splashes. And I think you might see another offensive lineman or two. But that's what I expect. The rest of the positions I touched on, I think you're going to see in the draft.
You really surprised me with how much you talked about him. That's the only reason I was like, let's go, because you weren't he wasn't like.
I think it's a big deal. I think it's a big deal because Saquon Barkley, I mean, I think he's a really important piece of this franchise over the past.
Yeah, it was the face of the franchise.
The decision to draft him in 2018 has kind of resulted in everything that's happened since. So I think it's kind of important to reflect on the era for 10 minutes or so, before we kind of move on. This has been past 6 years of Giants football has been the Saquon Barkley era, and he is gone, and he's gone to a division rival. And I think it's something that Giants fans, I think, at least emotionally are upset about. Maybe not logically, but yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I'm not upset that he's gone, but I do think it was worth talking about, and I think we talked a bit about everyone else too equally, so or at least somewhat equally, close enough.
What I will say is obviously, stay locked on the Giant Take socials on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook at the Giant Take Pod. Another thing I can say, and pretty confident I can promise that today will be definitely a slower day for the New York Giants than yesterday was.
I think you can guarantee that.
I don't think anything can top what happened yesterday in the past 10 years, maybe in the entire history of free agency on a single day when it comes to the New York Giants. I don't know if we've had that much of like a blockbuster day. Definitely not in the 3 years that we've been doing this podcast. If actually almost 4, right? Almost 4 come April.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, we definitely have not had a free agency like that ever before. All right. That's going to be it for now. This episode will be posted as soon as possible. Hopefully the Giants don't sign anyone between like 9:30 a.m. and 10:30 a.m. on Tuesday morning. If they do, I just said the time, so you know why we didn't talk about it. Stay tuned. I'm sure we'll have another episode this week if anything else happens. But for Alex, what am I doing like I'm about to wrap it up? Follow Alex on Twitter at Anorian23. I'm on Twitter at JoshSolo29. You already know the socials, but it'll all be in the description down below. Alex, go ahead.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to today's episode of the Giant Take podcast. Hope everyone is enjoying free agency, and we'll see you next time with more Giants free agency, draft, whatever it may be, off-season news. Peace.